Students, today we will start the next application of derivative. Is that application is for increasing function and decreasing function. To find the function, given function is either increasing or decreasing. We can find this by using derivatives again. This is the second application of derivative. So first of all, let us go to increasing function. First, we will find what is increasing function actually. We will define increasing function, and after that we will obtain the condition by using differentiation to find increasing function. So first of all, what is increasing function? The meaning is in its name. Many times, remember, many times in mathematics also, meaning of the term is in its own name. Okay, त्याच्या नावातच त्याचा अर्थ असतो. ठीक आहे. Increasing function means what? Means what? As we increase the value of the variable in that function, the value of the function will increase. Means what? Look at this. Suppose let f of x be a function. F of x be a real valued function. Real valued function. Which is defined on the open interval a to b. Now this function f of x on this interval is said to be increasing. Is said to be increasing. When is said to be increasing on this interval is said to be increasing on this interval if for some x1 x2 belonging to this interval, if for some x1 and x2, for some x1 and x2 belonging to this interval a comma b, such that x1 is less than x2, means value of x2 is greater than value of x1, value of x2 is greater than value of x1, then the value of f of x1 is also less than value of f of x2. Value of f of x1 is also less than value of f of x2. Let me explain it once again. You can use this definition directly to find increasing or decreasing function for CET or JEE examinations, but not for board examination. For board examination we have to use derivative. Okay, but for CET JEE, if it is possible, you may directly use this definition. What is this definition actually? If your function is f of x, given f of x is equal to some polynomial, suppose, which is defined in this interval. Now what will I do? I will choose 2 points from this interval. They are x1 and x2. How the 2 points will be there? Such that x1 is less than x2. x1 is less than x2. And then I will try to find the value of that function at x1 and x2. So value of f of x at x1 is f of x1. Value of f of x at x2 is f of x2. Now if x1 is less than x2, then f of x1 is less than f of x2. Such a function is called as increasing function. Such function is called as increasing function. Means as I increase the value of the variable, the value of that function will also get increased. Value of the function will get increased. Got it? This is domain of this function. Consider any two values from this domain such that first value is less than the next value or next value is greater than the first value. Then if for those values value of the function is like this, then that function will be increasing function. How this function will have its graph? Look at this graph. Suppose consider this one. X-axis, origin, y-axis. I will consider one function. You know the function sin x, f of x is equal to sin x, suppose, I will consider this function in the interval 0 to pi by 2. I will consider this function in the interval 0 to pi by 2 up to this. You know this one. Sin 0 is 0, sin pi by 2 is 1. Sin pi by 2 is equal to 1. Now look at this function. This is 0, this one is pi by 2. Okay. So if I consider any two values from here, suppose this one is pi by 6, suppose this one is pi by 6 and this value is pi by 4. Okay, pi by 4. This interval is considered. So of course pi by 4 is greater than pi by 6. Then look at this value. This value is the value of function here. We know value of the function is along y-axis and variable along x-axis. So at pi by 6, here it will be the value of that function, and at pi by 4, here it will be the value of that function. Of course, this value is greater than this one. What is sin pi by 6? What is sin pi by 6? It is 1 upon 2. Sin pi by 6 is 1 upon 2. And what is sin pi by 4? What is sin pi by 4? It is 1 upon root 2. It is 1 upon root 2. And here the value of the function is 1. इथे त्याची value 1 आहे. Okay, now look at this. 1 upon root 2 is greater than 1 upon 2. 1 upon root 2 is greater than 1 upon 2. How? Look at this. 1 upon 2 means 0.5. Here 1 is divided by 2 and here 1 is divided by square root of 2. Square root of 2 will be always less than 2. And therefore 1 upon square root of 2 is greater than 1 upon 2. Now here clearly you can observe this. As your x increases, your y also increases. As your x increases, your y also increases. So the function y is equal to sin x. But the interval is very important. I am considering the interval only 0 to pi by 2. In open interval 0 to pi by 2. In the open interval 0 to pi by 2. Okay. So my function is increasing function in this interval, not in the next interval. Because from pi by 2 to pi, what will happen? As value of x increases, value of y will decrease. So at that time it will be, yes, it will be decreasing function. So increasing function is like this. Got it? As I increases the value of x, value of y will also increase. Remember, while drawing any graph of the curve, always remember the values from domain will be along x-axis and values of f of x will be along y-axis. Got it? So as x increases, value of y also increases. Such a function is called as increasing function. Got it? Is it clear now? Now we will go to decreasing function. In the same way we can define for decreasing function also. So what will happen there? Exactly opposite. If for some function x1 and x2 are such that x1 is less than x2, means x2 is increasing, values of x are increasing, but at that time values of y, that is f of x, will be decreasing, means f of x1 is greater than f of x2. This function f of x, you may write here it as y is equal to f of x also. No problem. F of x1 is greater than f of x2. So what happens? Look here. As x1 is less than x2, but f of x1 is greater than f of x2. Means what? My values of x are increasing, but at the same time values of f of x are getting decreased. So such a function is called as decreasing function. Such function is called as decreasing function. Got it? So increasing means values of x increases, at the same time values of f of x also increases, and decreasing function means values of x increases but values of f of x decreases. I will consider the same graph again for the next interval. आपण हाच ग्राफ आपण पुढच्या इंटरवल साठी कन्सिडर करूया. काय होतंय बघा. We will compare here at the same time. Look at this. So this is your x axis, this is your y axis. Values of x are along x axis and values of f of x are along y axis. Now what happens? Look here. I will consider the interval here from pi by 2 to pi. I will consider the interval from pi by 2 to pi. So what happens? Values of x are increasing pi by 2 to pi. But what happens from pi by 2 to pi? Suppose this is your value of y is 1. Value of y is 1. So up to this. Now the graph will be like this. This graph will be like this. So what happens here? What happens here? Look, from where I have started, as values of x increases, values of y going decrease. Values of y going decrease. So the graph is going to touch the x-axis. You may consider up to next also. Here it will be for 3 pi by 2, it is minus 1. You may consider up to 3 pi by 2 also. So this will go to this, like this. Okay, I have considered this one. So what happens here, as value of x increase, now here suppose I will consider this point and this point. This is your x1, this is your x2. So what happens here, this is value of x1, x2. So for x1, look here, your y is here, and for x2, y is here. For x1, y is this one. So here it will your f of x1 at this point, and at this point your f of x2. Now can you observe here, value of f of x2 is below the value of f of x1, means f of x2 is less than f of x1. So such a function is called as a decreasing function, means the same function y is equal to sin x in the interval pi by 2 to pi. What happens? The function is a decreasing function in this interval. So it is very important in which interval we are thinking about that function. Okay, so the interval is most important thing. Interval is most important thing. Never neglect it. So for this interval, same function is increasing function, and for this interval, same function is a decreasing function. Here this one is your f of x1, that is f of x2, that is f of pi by 4, and this one is your f of pi by 6. This is x1, this is x2. This is x1, f of x1, this is f of x2. Here f of x1, then f of x2. F of x2 is greater than f of x1, and here f of x1 is greater than f of x2. This is the difference between increasing and decreasing function. Got it? Got the ideas of definitions of increasing and decreasing function? Remember, you may use this concept to solve the examples in CET and JEE to save your time. It is not necessary to solve any other method. For CET and JEE, always remember, you have to save your time. You may solve any example by any way, but it should be proper way. Remember, it should be proper way. But for our board examination, you have to write each and every step properly. How you are solving this? So you have to write those steps as mentioned in our textbook as much as possible. Okay? So in the next video, we will consider some examples of increasing and decreasing functions. I think you are getting this meaning of increasing and decreasing function, which is second application of derivative.